Well, thank you for joining me tonight for another new webinar to Gwinnett Extension. This is not a new one. This actually has been adapted from a webinar that was given at the Southeast Green, and I was lucky enough to get it, and I have adapted it a little bit for homeowner use. So if you have been following along with some of the webinars that I've been doing, I did one back in January that was kind of a what's new on the horizon. That one was one that I was also lucky enough to get and adapted for homeowner use, but it was originally done for landscape professionals or professionals in the green industry that might want to think about a business model that includes plants. So that's not everybody. I mean, sometimes people just think of landscapers, somebody that's going to cut your lawn or come out and deal with your trees, maybe someone doing some pruning or planting some things for you, doing a landscape plan. But there are a lot of different green industry professions out there, and Extension supports all of them. Some of them we offer licensing for, some of them we offer certificates for, training, all sorts of stuff. And this one was kind of geared towards folks in that particular kind of industry. So this one is about containers, and it could be either if you're a homeowner or a renter that has a love of container gardening and you're looking for something a little different. Maybe you want to figure out how can I kind of spruce it up a little bit. I mean, maybe you don't have a lot of space. Maybe you're on a condo on the fifth floor and you have a little balcony and that's about it. Maybe you have a really luxurious, beautiful home and you're looking for something different because you've done it all for the last 10 years, and now you want something to kind of take you to a different level. And so this one is about mixing edible plants with ornamental plants. So a lot of people may not realize that some of the plants out there that are sold as ornamentals are also edible. I did a tea webinar, things that you can use for tea back, I don't know, probably a month or two ago. And there were a lot of plants in your landscape that you could use for tea. And of course, a lot that were available through your big box stores and your typical nurseries and things like that, that you could use as a source of tea. Tea is a big heading. And so there's also ways that you can use some of those plants plus some others in your container gardening. And this one's going to focus more on like the whole thriller, filler, spiller, which is a very popular model for container gardening. And we'll talk a little bit about it, learn kind of the specifics of that style of design in containers. And then we'll talk a little bit about some different types of gardens, if you will, that you can do in your container, like a pizza garden, things like that. So I know a lot of people, especially if you're an extension or you're involved with extension in some way, maybe a master gardener or something else, you probably know what that is, a pizza garden. But there are a lot of others that you can do. And this one will let you know about some of the plants that are actually edible that you can add in there that are fairly easy to source that might give you some neat things that you can do going forward. So my name is Lisa Klein, and I am with the Agriculture and Natural Resources team at UJ Extension Gwinnett. And we do a lot of outreach here. And this is the In the Garden series that I have put together and run for both Master Gardener continuing education and just for the general public. The easiest way to do it is to do it through a webinar, and that lets you sit at home on your couch and enjoy learning about all sorts of different stuff from the comfort of your own home. And these are all recorded. and they are put on our Metro Master Gardener YouTube channel afterwards. Sometimes it may be a week, sometimes it might be a couple weeks, depending on how crazy our schedule is. Um, but if you have any questions, feel free to drop those in the chat box and I will answer those when I get to the end. My slide deck is available for those who would like to keep that for information purposes, if you would like that. I do realize I have a lot of master gardeners that follow and watch these, and a lot of these will end up in the library repository. So if you think that this is something or you see something that you might want to give as part of your own volunteering and giving back to the community, feel free to reach out to me about that particular slide deck and we can discuss whether that's something that you can go ahead and use. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so why would you mix in edibles with ornamentals? I kind of went into that a little bit, but a lot of us just don't have a ton of space. Or maybe we're mobility limited and we used to have a nice garden back at the end of our lawn and in the way back. I mean, my garden's way back there, like when I say way back at the back end of our 1 acre lot. And sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's just not fun to go down there and deal with that in the hot sun. Maybe you like cooking a lot and you're trying to find a better, more efficient way of having some of your herbs and some of your other plants that you would use in cooking close by so that you don't have to go to the grocery store or go down to the end of the yard or something like that. So you're thinking, I'd like to try container gardening. But we all know most herbs are not the most flowerific or most beautiful. And so you're like, I'm kind of hesitant to have my pot of herbs right here because I just, I still love my flowers and I want my flowers in a pot. So this kind of gives you some options, some things that you can try. Plus, there's some things that you can think about if you've got kids or grandkids and you want to have something that's, fun to do, and this would be a good activity as well. So, it's kind of a trend. I've been at some of the big box stores and some of the nurseries, and I've seen mixtures of ornamentals with some herbs as well. And they kind of appeal. I mean, why not? I mean, it's a good kind of eco-conscious way. A lot of these are perennial herbs. Some of them are annuals, or some of these other types of plants, but you can, get them to come back year after year. That's my favorite pot, one that I don't have to go back and put stuff in every single year. Or maybe one that I only have to put one plant in, the others are perennials. So there's a lot of things that you can do here. But overall, this is one that I have kind of adapted to both a homeowner and if you're thinking of trying something out, a little side gig, if you will, there are some things in here that you may want to look at doing for a business model. So remember, it was adapted from a green industry standpoint. I just thought it had a lot of good stuff in it, and I wanted to share that. So let's see what we got, right? So customer appeal and business benefits. So there's a couple, there's a dichotomy here. It's a good one. So customer appeal, you're going to have a lot of folks that are trying to be healthier, right? Maybe they want to do their own herbal tea. So this is something that you can do, like I said, that you have it close by. You don't have to go all the way down to the end of the yard and pick it in the garden there. If you don't have a lot of space, this is perfect because you can do a lot of container gardening in a very small footprint. Vertical gardening also, this is perfect for if you're, like I said, you're on the fifth floor of a condo or you only have a tiny little backyard with maybe just a postage stamp size patio area. You can still get all sorts of smells and flavors and scents and textures. My counterpart, Kim Fritz, does a lot of school gardening, and in a lot of those school gardens, they do a lot of these sensory gardens, which are really neat. Different plants with different textures. Some of them are fuzzy, some of them smell really good. Some of them taste really good, that kind of thing. So this is a good model to have. And, it's really fun also because there's so many combinations out there. So if you're thinking of the side gig, like I mentioned, you're going to notice this little light bulb with the dollar sign in it. And that's kind of, that's there to kind of go, oh, to get you thinking that maybe this is something that you could do. We have a ton of farmers markets in and around the metro area. Gwinnett County has so many anymore, I can't even count. Most of the surrounding counties also have a lot of farmers markets. There is always room for folks who are looking for something to do to make money because these things are pretty cool. And so if you go out and you put these little pots together, these little edible gardens, um, that's a neat business model to have. I mean, there's all sorts of other ones like cut flowers and, you can do your soaps and the typicals, but you want to look for something that's not saturated. And this is one that I don't think is saturated. I haven't seen a ton of them at farmers markets in the recent past. So might be something worth looking at. Um, if you're in a situation where you could sell a subscription to somebody or a business, perhaps, you can come out and refresh pots and plants, swap them out for seasonal varieties because you can get, edible plants that are good all 4 seasons. We have a lot of landscape groups that will go out and they'll swap them out. They'll put tulip bulbs in, you'll have pansies, and then you have your summer plants, that kind of thing. But you can have all sorts of stuff. So, also think about if you do go down the farmer's market path, you can add in some upsells, some things that are pots, really cool looking, maybe painted pots, fertilizers. You can add a little bit of a bag of fertilizer, some tools or something like that. We'll be testing a little bit of that out at our local plant sale that we're going to be having on March 12th. So we have one more day to order in our pre-sale for our UG Extension Gwinnett plant sale for our edible plants and our pre-sales, and then the pickup will be on March 12th at the Gwinnett County Fairgrounds, and we'll have a really awesome bonus sale with a ton of extra stuff there. I'm really excited about that and seeing what we'll have going on there. But we're going to try some of these things and see what happens. And so now that we're open to the public, we can kind of do this and test some of this stuff out. Okay, so this is the baseline model for what we'll be talking about here. So some of you may know what a thriller, filler, and spiller is. This is kind of, as far as container gardening go, one of the biggest design models that we would have. So a thriller, that's going to be something that's very eye-catching. It's got the height to it. It's going to be tall, right? And here, that might be things like kale, so something that's a little taller and spikier and all that. Okra, which is unusual. Yeah, who thought about putting okra in a pot, huh? And then there's some types or some specific cultivars of herbs like this rosemary. You can get very upright rosemary versus lower growing rosemaries, or maybe something that's been pruned into a more upright growth pattern. You have your fillers. These are going to be plants that grow out and fill very fast and give you that volume, and something that's going to be really colorful and gives you kind of a contrasting either foliage color or flower color. Things like that could be basil. There's purple basil. There's really vivid greens, dark greens, calendula and pansies. Those are good. And then you're going to have something that's called a spiller. That's going to be something that's going to kind of fill out the sides and around, and then it's going to kind of trail over the edge of the pot and give you something. It looks like a waterfall if you kind of want to think about that. Things like thyme, nasturtiums, oregano, things that kind of grow out and then just kind of grow down. So overall, whenever you're thinking about floral design, which this falls under, remember, you're looking for balance, texture, color, and growth habits. You don't want something to kind of overpower the whole plant, or the whole pot, I should say. And there is mint in here in one of these. That's something I would never tell you to put in the ground, only put it in a pot. And you can help control some of that by actually putting it in a pot within the pot. So, but we'll talk about that when we get there. So choosing the right container. Hey, the sky is the limit here. I have seen people use old bras. I've seen them use bathtubs. I've seen them use plastic bins. I've seen them use toilets. I mean, yeah, those are some really weird ones. But of course, you can always go for the traditional ones. You can make your own, like this one up at the top. It's either concrete or hypertufa. You can get your typical terracotta pots. You can take some of these wicker pots and then have an insert, plastic insert or something. There's other pots that are kind of a foam that are real light, so it doesn't weigh a ton. And then you have some like this where it looks like somebody's probably taken some, it's probably a box and then they've taken some stone or ceramic, could be like tile or something, and tiled that. So lots of options here, and really it can go, a lot of different ways with regards to what your house looks like. There's a lot of different home styles around these days. You have some very traditional ones. You also have some that I would call more modern looking, and you can, completely customize based on however your home looks. You just have to keep in mind there's some things that are standard across the board that you really can't change too much. So whatever you're going to put in there, size, the material, the drainage, those are all key factors. So you've got to have something that's going to drain. You got to have a material that isn't going to end up killing your plants or something like that. And whatever plants you put in there need to be in proportion to the size of whatever container it is. So here in this particular box, you see some cannas in the middle. You see some really tall stuff. I don't know, those might be, oh, cosmos. I can't quite tell, but you've got some sweet potato vine that's trailing over, maybe some mums and some verbena. Those are all big and bushy and kind of filling out. Those are perfect for a rather large container like this. But if you had maybe a gallon container, so like a small one, maybe we'll say 3 gallon or a 5 gallon, right? And you put a canna in there, that would completely overpower that small pot. So you need to be kind of aware of what you're putting in those pots. All right, potting mix and fertilizer. So you need to be also aware of your plant health. So that's something that when you start with the right mix, and that mix might be a soilless mix. In fact, I usually recommend those for pots. You can change that out periodically, even if you have perennial flowers or herbs or other plants that are mixed in. A lot of them will come with either moisture retaining gel in the mix. They almost always will come with some type of fertilizer in the mix. You just need to be aware that if you're going to use that same soil for more than a couple years, you probably are going to need to either repot it, or you need to go back and get some fertilizer, preferably one that has micronutrients in that mix, and then put that on the soil for the plant. Although you may find that your plants have filled out so much at that point that you either need to upsize your container or divide the plants. You need to look at managing the drainage. So it doesn't say in here, but when you are planting something, I know the old wives' tales say put some broken pottery pieces or some gravel or something like that down at the bottom of the pot and then put your soil on top of that. Don't do that. That causes what's known as a perched water table. So when you have two different materials that are like that, you can saturate that growth medium that's above that, and it doesn't actually break the surface tension to drain down into that gravel at the bottom. So some of your plants may end up overwatered because that water doesn't actually drain down into the whatever material you have down there. So what I usually recommend, put a pot, like a coffee filter. That's perfect in the bottom. If you have a bigger pot, put a bunch of different coffee filters down there. It's biodegradable. It will allow water to pass through, and it does help with the roots that might grow down in there. And then sometimes you'll have problems with the roots growing through the hole and clogging it. That can help with that. So you can use something like that. That'll definitely take care of your drainage. Um, You also might want to think about labeling plants. This goes for both if you're a homeowner and if you're thinking about doing a side gig. There's a lot of neat ways to do that. Sometimes people will paint blackboard paint on popsicle sticks, and then you can just use chalk to write on there. That's a neat and easy way that's very attractive if you're planning on selling them. If you're going to keep that at your house and you want to label whichever plants are going to be edible for use in the future, you can get really nice metal ones that you just use a tool and you can write that on there and it just kind of edges out whatever that plant is. And then you just put that in the pot next to whatever the plant is, and then you have an easy way of identifying it. And you don't want anybody going over and, oh, this is your edible pot, and eating a part of a plant that is not something that's edible. So it's also an important thing to do for labeling for safety. So sun, water, and placement. Right plant, right place. Just because you're not putting it in the ground doesn't mean that it's not important to align with all of those particular needs. So if you're choosing something that's a tropical, then note that's going to be an annual here in the Atlanta metro area. If it is outside, if its hardiness zone is outside, whatever the one is where you're, and most of the big box stores will sell that. You can get like bougainvillea that's not hardy here. It is down in Florida and it is in parts of South Georgia, but it is not in the Atlanta metro area. So you need to be aware that you're going to have to wheel that pot into the garage at certain points when the temperature drops. Okay. So choose plants that are going to be well suited to our climate. Try to pick something that's right in the middle of the hardiness zone. You don't want it either at the very tippy top, so it's a very tender perennial, or at the very bottom and mostly a temperate plant because it's going to struggle in our heat and humidity here, or it's going to be a little too cold and you might lose it. Sunlight requirements, don't put plants with different light requirements together. If you've got a bunch of sun-loving plants and then you shove a hosta in there, sure, it looks pretty, but it's going to burn up because your sun-loving plants aren't going to be happy if you have to put it in the shade for the hosta, and the hosta is not going to be happy if you put it in the sun for your sun-loving plants. So make sure that whatever you're putting in there, it all works out and they all like the same light requirements. Full sun, part sun, shade. You can do them all. Soil and water needs, just like with the sun, you've got to make sure their soil and water needs match. So maybe you like succulents. That's fine. Portulaca, we'll just use that. That is a succulent that does not like being saturated in water. It also likes sunny stuff. It's great for a rock garden. However, if you're going to put it in a pot, don't put it in the pot with something that loves water and is shady because you're talking about more of a desert Mediterranean climate type plant and then something that maybe wants shade and a lot of water. They don't work together. So one or the other is going to die depending on which one isn't getting what it needs. So make sure that you're matching your plants and they have similar soil and water requirements so that they're happiest. Makes sense, right? All right. Food safety. That's not something that typically people are going to think about because most of the time you just put stuff in a container based on how pretty it looks. You're not thinking about the edible ability of one of those particular plants. So, really, you need to think about that before you're selecting and maybe kind of put a little thought into the process of what you're going to get. Don't just grab whatever looks pretty when you're at the nursery. So, you only need to be using food safe containers and treatments. So, you could use terracotta, you can use a ceramic glazed pot. Um, don't use something like, railroad ties or something like a box that you built with treated lumber or something like that. Don't do that because that's not safe. That's not food safe. Don't use an old tire. Now, a ceramic toilet bowl, you could use that because it's ceramic coated. Again, you want to make sure that you're not leaching any chemicals into the soil so that your whatever plants you're eating could uptake those particular chemicals. And a tip, so here's our little light bulb friend again. If you're thinking of doing that side gig where you might be putting together some of these pots and then trying to sell them, keep a list of your best practices on your website. Everybody pretty much has to have a website now. If you're trying to sell your products, QR codes, have all of that literature available. Make it your passion that your safety comes first, whereas you're coming and you're listing things like I don't ever choose dangerous plants that are toxic. That's what those are right there. Daffodils. Yeah. Hey, when we have people that complain that their tulip bulbs get eaten all the time by squirrels, we tell them plant your tulips and then put some hardware cloth over the top and then put the daffodil bulbs. Those are toxic. Squirrels won't eat those. Excuse me. And I believe that's I want to say digitalis there. The common name is escaping me, but that is not something that you want. You see a lot of these out in the Pacific Northwest. Um, they're very pretty. I've got lots of beautiful pictures of them, but they are also toxic. And then you want clear signage to let customers know what's safe to harvest. So remember when I said those cute little popsicle sticks that you write the name of the plant? You could put those in there with each of them, and then you could write "Eat Me" or something, like the whole Alice in Wonderland kind of phenomenon. It's cute, and people will like that. So that might be a good idea for you. Maintenance and longevity. So if you want your beautiful pot of edible flowers and plants to look its best for longest, you still have to do the same things that you would do in your regular pots. And that means pruning. So you don't want them to get too leggy. A lot of herbs, especially, will start to grow, they'll bolt. That means that in later summer, when it starts to get warmer, they want to complete their life cycle. So they're going to send up flower stalks and they're going to try to complete their life cycle and seed. So you're trying to prevent that. You're going to go in there and you're going to pinch off or you're going to prune off those flower stalks so that they don't. As they're growing, also, if you don't want them to grow up any further, you're going to also pinch off or prune off those taller stems so that it bushes out more instead of going up. It really depends on how you prune them. You're going to dead hedge your ornamentals for continuous bloom and continuous flowers because getting rid of those the dead flower heads is going to tell that plant, oh, I don't have any more seeds, or I don't have the ability because they took my flower away. I need to go ahead and flower some more so I can make some more seed. And then think about replacing plants that are kind of leggy or maybe got a little bit of disease or just aren't looking so good in the middle of the season. That's going to extend how that pot looks going forward. So, common problems and fixes. Overcrowding. I know sometimes it's very tempting to jam all these plants into a small pot, thinking, oh, it'll be fine. Well, initially, but as it grows, they're going to get stunted because they're not able to actually attain their chosen size. We tell people this with landscape plants all the time. I know they're little now, but they're not going to be little. So look at the tag and make sure that you're looking at the maximum size and keeping that in mind when you're putting it in a pot. Because just because it's small now doesn't mean that by the end of the summer it's going to be small. And it would look better if you had it in a situation where it looked nice and lush and beautiful because you gave it a chance to grow. Also, keep in mind a nutrient deficiency. So remember, I said you're going to have to fertilize after a year or so because that plant's going to exhaust whatever fertilizer was in that initial soilless mix that you put in there. So that will start to express itself on what the leaves look like. So nitrogen is an easy one. The leaves start looking yellow and kind of anemic, but there are other deficiencies. Plants have about 13 to 16 different elements that they need. We call those macronutrients, secondary macronutrients, and then micronutrients. So, obviously, just the way it sounds, you've got your nitrogen, you've got your phosphorus, and your potassium. That's your NPK ratio. Those three numbers that show up on that fertilizer bag or bottle or whatever you're using, that's what the plants need the most of. But that's not all. There's another set that comes shortly after that. They'll have like calcium, magnesium, um, trying to think of some of the other ones. And then we move into the micronutrients that'd be like boron or sulfur, calcium, some of those others that they need less and less of, but they still need it. And so if you're in a container situation, you have to make sure that those plants are getting all of those. So you're going to be looking for a complete fertilizer. Make sure that you flip it over and look on the back side, and it's got more than just that NPK ratio. It's got to have all the other stuff as well. And so some people like to do organic fertilizer. That's up to you. That's fine. You just have to make sure that it is a complete fertilizer, that it's got all of that stuff in there, okay? So if it doesn't, you're going to start noticing that your plants are going to look not as healthy. They're probably not going to produce as well. The flowers just won't be as numerous as they would be if you were feeding them the way you should. And then pest control. So we usually tell folks that you got to use integrated pest management. So if you're going to use organic, you definitely need to do integrated pest management. And that means you're going to put a little effort into it. Flip those leaves over, look for the insect eggs, squish them or get rid of them because that's the easiest stage you possibly can have to get rid of that bug. By the time it grows up and it gets to be an adult, it's really hard to get rid of. And a lot of them are a lot more mobile. Think Japanese beetles or something like that, Mexican bean beetles. And they can do a lot of damage and they can eat your leaves in a very quick amount of time. And so then all the work you put into this container and boom, it's gone, right? So just flip those leaves over and just give it a good once over and make sure, do that a couple times a week just to kind of keep tabs. It's a lot easier to do on a small garden than it is in a big garden. And, we tell people to do it in the big garden. So it's easier to just pull that leaf off and not have to worry about any kind of pest control. But if you need to, you can use things like insecticidal soap. You can use neem oil. Just be careful about making sure that whatever you're using is safe if you do get some for consumption purposes. Usually, just like insecticidal soap, you can wash that off. Marketing. So here's our little light bulb friend again. If you're thinking about the side gig, you can encourage some customer follow-up care. So you could sell them the product and also sell them the service of, I'll stop by once a week and check on your investment, flip those leaves over for you, give it some water, some fertilizer, and some love, and keep it going. Okay, so now we're going to jump into some interesting kinds of these gardens. So this is probably what most of you are here for. You're like, I need some ideas. What can I do? So the original program had a couple in here, and I put together several more slides that were interesting and I thought were pretty cool. So this is your seasonal recipe ideas. So you see my little, light bulb here again, and that's something that if you're thinking about doing it as a side gig, any of these would be a good idea for you to put together. And they're not too difficult to do either. Another option that you can do is put them together and then have a recipe card that's attached to the pot, along with the cute little hand painted um, sticks with the blackboard paint on there. Sorry, I'm getting a little dry throat here. So we've got the ones that are most typically known, and that would be your pizza garden. You can do a lot of different types of tomatoes here. You don't have to do cherry tomatoes. Some people will do aroma. You can do oregano and basil. This is one that the kids' gardens do a lot of. Very simple, pretty easy to grow. They're all very easy to grow, and you literally can make pizza out of it. One of my favorite things is margarita pizza. You get a nice pizza crust. You can go to Publix if you've got Publix nearby. They'll sell the pizza crust. Put that in the oven, spread it out, crisp it up a little bit, and then come back and put you can make your own tomato sauce, or if you want to, you can put commercial tomato sauce down, and then cut those tomatoes up. Use that basil, kind of tear it up and put that on there and get some fresh, those big balls of mozzarella cheese in the deli section. And then put that on top and let it melt in the oven. Oh my gosh, it's so good. Fresh garden tomatoes are, you know, the best kept secret. And if you can grow it all in a pot, even if you live in a condo, it's perfect, right? I also mentioned tea. And so you can do a tea time. And these are all names that you can totally use. These are none of these are copyrighted. You can grow your own teapot. Haha. Maybe you make a cute little sign that says tea time on it, and then you have your mint. Your mint, you have to be careful with. This is, it can get away with you, from you. In a container like this, it can overtake that container. So you may choose to put it in another smaller container within that container. It can its rootlets can attach outside of that, but that will help it from taking over the whole pot. And then you can put lavender. Lavender is going to be your thriller or your taller, and then lemon balm, which is kind of trailing. Every plant in there is edible, and you can make tea out of it. So that is something that would be kind of neat, right? And then you have your cool season colors. So you can have your Swiss chard. There are there's one called Dinosaur and something else, but it's got really pretty colors on the stems, like a fuchsia color and yellow and kind of an orange. And then, of course, the green from the leaves. And that's all. You can eat Swiss chard. Violas, those are a little bit like a pansy, very small, and parsley, of course. And so not only does it look pretty because you've got flowers there and you've got the green and you've got the brilliant fuchsias and oranges and yellows from the Swiss chard, but you can eat it all. Next up, we've got the Mediterranean Glow. Um, I did use AI to kind of help come up with some names here, but I thought they were pretty cute. And so you can use rosemary. This is where you can prune it into an upright growth pattern. You can use basil, so either purple or Thai basil. Or just regular old basil, that's fine. And you can kind of pinch that down to get it at whatever height you want. And then trailing thyme, so that's your spiller. So you've got your thriller, which is your rosemary, your basil, which if you pinch that down or prune that down, it'll bush out real nice for you, your filler, and then your trailing thyme, which is your spiller. And this will work all summer long. And these are great cooking herbs. So this would be a great gift for somebody who likes to cook a lot. And they can have that handy, right? Berry and bloom bowl. So there are some dwarf blueberry bushes that are out there. You can also, just like anything else, train those to be much smaller. This is probably going to be a larger, like a patio size, but you could do a dwarf blueberry. Some of them are self-fruitful, meaning they will produce even though they don't have a secondary bush there. But if they have a secondary bush, then often you'll get more than you would if you just had one. So this might be one where you could have two pots. You can do pink dianthus. Or dwarf marigolds for the flowers, and then strawberries, because strawberries, what do they do? They have babies that kind of trail over the sides. So just kind of an interesting, the berry and bloom bowl. I kind of like that. I thought that was kind of cool. You got the spicy sunset. That's going to be ornamental peppers, or you can actually do real peppers if you want hot peppers. You'll have to do a lot of pinching on those because they can get quite large, the plants can. So you need to keep them at a more manageable size. And then orange or red nasturtiums. Nasturtiums are completely edible. And then your sweet potato vine. So they are edible. I don't know many people that will eat the sweet potato vine, but you do have the nasturtiums. And if you put real peppers in, let's say habaneros or jalapenos, and it's in a slightly larger container and maybe one that you pinch them down to keep the size more manageable, you've got a spicy sunset um, pot. Next, you have your herb garden cottage mix. So you can get lemongrass, which smells heavenly. You've got different types of parsley. There's a lot of different types of parsley. So you can get curly parsley, maybe some chives. They're a little spiky. And then creeping oregano. So again, you've got another herb pot mix that you can do for cooking. Different layers in there, different textures, and all good for the kitchen. You got a patio tomato pot. That's just kind of boring, yes. You can get that at, one of the big box stores. They'll sell a small tomato plant, a pot, but this one's going to have other stuff. So you can add basil, Genovese basil, or some of the compact globe basil, which is a lot smaller. And then you can put those nasturtiums in there again. And so you've got those nasturtiums, which will have the orange or yellow bloom, and then the basil, which you can do the different colors there, and then a tomato, either a patio tomato or a dwarf cherry or something. And then your pollinator produce. So you can get dwarf okra, baby bubba, I like that name. And then you can do zinnias or dwarf cosmos, which are going to be a lot smaller. And then your creeping thyme or trailing marigolds or something like that. So you've got, the thyme, if you choose that, is definitely edible. And then you've got your okra, which could produce, and you can pinch that down to keep it at a more manageable height. And then the trailing marigolds or all that, that'll kind of soften things up. And again, you can make any of these. I haven't, nothing's trademarked. I'm giving you ideas if you want to try something interesting. And if you do, I would love to hear if it was a success story, because that's what we're here at Extension for. We're here to support you in any kind of agriculture that could be out there, and that includes farmers markets. We have a lot of our master gardeners go and represent us at farmers markets, but we're here to help folks and come up with agritourism, and that kind of falls under the heading of that. So, if you're thinking of doing some kind of agriculture, it's not going to be a tractor pulling, or a combine or something like you would in South Georgia. Here, it's going to be maybe something like this, where you do it in your backyard and then you're selling it at the farmer's market. Or maybe you've got some you pick blueberries that you have on an acre of your 3 acre parcel where your house is. Stuff like that. I mean, we call that more micro agriculture, but it's still agriculture, and it's kind of interesting. It's kind of cool, all the different ideas. Next up, you're shade friendly. So if you don't have a lot of sun, maybe you got a really shady balcony, there you go. You've got that Swiss chard. You've got the rainbow version again, some curly kale or dwarf collards, and then some mint. Remember, with the mint, it's probably better to put it in. You could even do like an old soup can, and put that in there, and it's kind of like a kitchen garden kind of thing. And then this one, I like this one. You've got the citrus color pot. Now, in the Atlanta area, we are not set up for year-round citrus growth. There are some types of citrus that will grow here, but they don't produce really good fruit. So they're continuously working on that to try to get more cold hardy varieties that actually are worth growing and eating. But right now, none of the Meyer type of citrus will overwinter here. Like the harsh cold that we've had this last winter, it would have done it all in. You pretty much would have had it living in your garage most of the time. And then on the few days where we've had over the last couple months, roll it outside to enjoy some weather, but you're going to have to roll it back in again. So here you would have a dwarf Meyer lemon, and they do have some variegated varieties. But again, keep it protected in the winter. So roll it inside if it's cold. Marigolds or calendula, so those are annuals. And then you can get a variegated oregano, which again, it's a perennial, so it'll come back. And you could really get some cool looking, your marigolds or calendula, that's going to be your filler. Your dwarf Meyer lemon's going to be your thriller. And then your oregano is going to be your spiller. And then your root and bloom harmony. So that's going to be a fern leaf dill. So dill can be you could also do fennel. That would be something, a bulb of fennel. You could do carrots and then some type of alyssa. Those are edible flowers and they have a really sweet fragrance. So there's a lot of different textures in there and a couple different edible things. So moving on, those again, any of those ideas are completely free to use. Don't worry about it. Homeowner or marketing engagement. So again, I'm going to kind of hit it from both sides. So as I mentioned earlier, mixed containers, we're trying to kind of throw the narrative out there that they're useful for more than just looking pretty. If you are a tea enthusiast, you can grow all sorts of different herbs and flowers and things that can be used in tea. And so you're expressing your personality that you're a tea person. And I mean, there is a world out there for that. There's a lot I didn't even realize that. I mean, when I did that tea one, I had so many people that were so excited about that. I have no clue. I mean, it's something, I'll tell you that. So just know that if you choose to go down that path and you want to make some that are good for tea, there is a market, there's a niche market for it. Um, and so people are going to use these both for their lifestyle and not just their landscape. So marketing, we got our little light bulb again, educating and engaging. So if you use those recipe cards or something, that's an extra added bonus. It gives them something to go, oh, I can buy this, and then here's a recipe to make it. Or if you just bought it, go look up some recipes, open up another world like the window behind me, which isn't real. Look up some things that you can do with that new herb that you bought in that pot. That'll give you something new to try. And then and you engage with them, and they may come back more and buy another one from you, or tell their friend, and their friend might come. So there's a lot of cool stuff here. You can use signage. I mentioned using the blackboard paint and popsicle sticks and things like that. You can make QR codes for free to promote your business, and then just have those there. You can encourage social sharing. There's a lot of stuff that you can do online that's cheap or free, and then host classes on how to make these. You might, host a class where you charge a certain amount if you're thinking about doing a little side gig, where, you come and you walk away, pay 20 or $30, and you walk away with a little pot and a couple of, edible plants. I don't know, something like that. There's a lot of different thoughts here. Again, feel free to use any of them if you would like. So consumers prefer bundles. Have you ever been, I mean, I buy a lot of stuff on Amazon just because it's convenient and they got a lot of stuff in one place, right? But if you're looking along and you get to this one and maybe you're looking for, let's say, a grow light, and you see a grow light, but it's also got, look like the one down below, maybe it's got like a little pair of pruners. Maybe it's got some pots, or it's got the little greenhouse container or something like that. And it's not that much more than the one next to it where they're just selling the grow lights. What are you going to do? I'm probably going to buy the bundle just because it's got all the cool stuff on there. And if you're starting out and you're a newbie, it's perfect because it comes with everything you need. It may not be the highest quality merchandise, but it's a good way to get you started so that you have the stuff you need. So that's an encouragement for if you're a newbie starting out, look for bundles. And if you're thinking about starting a little side business, do bundles. There's places that you can get the materials you need to put your little bundles together. And that would be a great way if you were doing maybe a little bonsai. You can you could do some little cute shaped herbs where you have shaped them into different, like to look like a tree or something like that. And you offer some little pruners or something else. I mean, just some neat little ideas. And you could do something also like a seasonal pre-bundle. I think I misspelled that. Oh well. Where you get a pot and a plant and the soil, and it all kind of comes together into a really cool to look at product. If you have a farmer's market thing or maybe a little storefront or shop, you can take some of these really cool little creations that you've had and put them in the checkout areas. Excuse me. See if you have maybe a friend that has a storefront, you can maybe sell some of your stuff there and you can put them near the checkout area. So if you're a consumer, this opens your eyes to new cool things. If you're trying to sell it, it gets your product out there so that people can see your new cool things. And you can always go back and change them out and stuff like that. So value added, I think is what they call it. All right, so some popular design principles. We'll just give you a little bit of education here. You have focal point, so that's going to bring your eye in, right? You're going to use bold colors and bold styles, like this pretty dahlia here. That's going to highlight your high margin type zone. So if you're going to sell stuff, then you want some really high end, pretty looking flowers like this. If you're trying to look for it for your house, that's what you're going to be looking for. You want something to draw your eye. You don't want the same old that you've seen everywhere else. You want something neat that you don't have, that not everybody else has. And this is, like I said, this would be where you would put at an entrance. Or for signage. And then balance. So this is going to be symmetry or formal. And there's different ways of doing. I mean, you can do asymmetry, which is kind of rambling, and a lot of us do that, where you're like, oh, that's pretty. I want to buy that. And then there's some that are like, no, I want to plan that. Think English garden. Okay. But distribute the weight of whatever it is you're making so that you're not shoving too much in there. Like I said, don't put plants that have completely filled the pot up before they've even had a chance to grow. Um, Weight that appropriately in the container that you have. Contrast, light versus dark, fine versus bold. Textures, different leaf textures. Some are fuzzy, like lamb's ear. Some are very bold in color, like this daylily. So you want something to be eye-catching, and you could go for color themes, monochromatic. I'll talk about the color wheel in a second. Rhythm. So repeat. You can have a box, and you can have a thriller, and you can have a filler, and you could do three. A thriller, filler, spiller, thriller, filler, spiller. You see the pattern, the rhythm. You could do proportion. You want to match the plant to the space. Don't overplant. That's probably the biggest thing I tell people. Don't overplant. And think about the container size. I've already talked about that. And then unity. Make sure it's cohesive and it all looks good. If you're looking at it yourself and you're like, something's off, it just doesn't feel right. It probably isn't going to feel right in your landscape, and it's probably not going to feel right for somebody that you want to buy your product, if that's what you want to do. Color is going to kind of form harmony. So you can do monochromatic, like I was mentioning. So they're all the same color, but different shades. Avoid visual chaos. Like you could do a moonlight garden. So you're doing light blues and whites and colors that it would look like under moonlight. You just don't want to do chaos. Don't put too many colors in there because it can be kind of deterrent. It's a deterrent. So what makes it visually compelling? Well, the form, the color, the texture, and the balance, just as I said. So tying that all together. You want it to be pretty. You want it to be memorable. Whether you're a homeowner who's going to have that there at your entrance or on your balcony, or you're trying to sell it. You want someone to go, oh, wow, that's pretty. I really want that. And you want to be able to sell that. So don't just go with the same old, like all your marigolds and, this or that. Go for something different. Make it visually compelling. Plant selection, choosing the right plants, right plant, right place. Again, beauty meets function. So look for plants that are suitable for whatever you're going to be doing. So again, not all edible plants are going to work in a container situation, just simply because, like I said, they can get really big. So look for dwarf varieties or compact varieties. The nursery industry is awesome. They've come up with so many different varieties out there. Patio is a good one. Look for patio varieties like patio tomatoes or globe basil. Those are smaller. They're meant for containers. Prioritize herbs and leafy greens. Those last a long time. You can do them in the wintertime, especially leafy greens. A lot of visual appeal. There's some variegated stuff, really cool things. Try to avoid the heavy feeders because remember, you're not in the ground, you're in a container. You don't want to have to keep fertilizing. So some plants are heavy feeders. If you do have those, make sure that the container's a little bit larger, okay? And then pair plants again with similar light and water needs. You don't want something that needs a lot of water with something that hates water. because one's going to die and then you just waste it. So try to kind of adhere to those rules. Spacing placement, that kind of thing. Again, leave room for those plants to get bigger and fill out that area. Start with your thriller a little bit off center. That's your tall one. Or center for round designs. It's going to depend a little bit on what kind of pot you have. Is it rectangular? Is it a weird shape? Is it round? Is it tall? That kind of stuff. Allow for air circulation. Here in the Atlanta area, it gets very, very humid. We have a lot of disease. So make sure you're allowing for some space in between plants, and then rotate those colorful accents from front to back so that you have a lot of beautiful flowers or spillers. Maybe you're trailing oregano or something like that at different intervals around the plant and the pot so that you're seeing it from all around or 360 degrees. And then, as I mentioned several times with marketing and a little light bulb, consider using chalk signs for educational purposes. You can do that at home too. I mean, I see it a lot with people who are trying to say, oh, my child's 5 months old now, or 6 months old, or it's their fifth grade, or whatever. Do it for your flowers too, so people can see what you have. You could buy one of these sandwich boards that's also a blackboard, and you could put down, my summer garden has fill whatever it is that's in there, because people look at that stuff and they're like, I wonder what plant that is. It's very pretty. Help them, let them know, you know? All right, edible plants, we're kind of running along a little here. I've been talking a lot. So, thyme, all edible, it's an herb. So, we're going to kind of whiz through these. Used a lot in cooking, very aromatic and can be dried. Stevia. I'm not a big fan of stevia, but it is a sweetener. A lot of people do like it. It's very sweet tasting, so that's one that you could use as an artificial sweetener also for tea. Portulaca, I think I mentioned this. Edible, leaves and stems, also known as purslane, very high in omega-3s if you're looking for health benefits. Sweet potato vine, so leaves and tubers. There are some ornamentals that are not really grown for tubers. It's not your traditional sweet potato, but it is edible. Agastache, or agastache. I personally haven't grown this one, but hummingbirds do like it. It is kind of supposedly a licorice mint flavor. Although, like I said, I have not grown this one, so I can't vouch for that. You've got, I think this is also called ice plant, Delosperma. So this is going to be the flowers. That's the edible part, the purple flower that you see there, used as a, yeah, ice plant. Hello, I guess I should read, right? Used decoratively. And then yarrow, lots of beautiful colors here. I mean, you see the white and the purple, but there's yellow, there's orange, there's fuchsia, there's a lot of really pretty colors here. So leaves and flowers. It's a medicinal herb, and it can be used in teas. It's got a little bit of a bitter taste. Lavender, we're all familiar with that. Lavender does prefer drier climates, but if you grow it in a container, you can control some of the soil issues that it would have if it was growing out on a hillside someplace. So you can control the drainage better in a pot depending on what type of medium you're using. And that's used, of course, in baking and teas and drinks. Sedums, lots of edible parts here, leaves, those sparingly, young shoots. You can cook them. Some species can be toxic, so just be careful and make sure you do your research on which ones you're using. Echinacea, so obviously this one is used a lot, both in Native American history and also, I mean, you can go buy the supplement over the counter, and it's used in herbal teas, roots, and flowers for immune support. Bee balm or Monarda, this is in the mint family. Leaves, flowers, wild bergamot. It's very aromatic. Again, it is in the mint family. Lemon balm, this is one that is very aromatic. Also, teas, used a lot in teas. Balloon flower, this was one that was surprising to me. You can eat the roots. Who knew, right? Slightly bitter, but used in medicinal purposes. And that's basically it. Hey, I only ran 2 minutes long. But again, this was an adaptation from Dr. Julie Campbell's presentation along with Sarah Hootsema from Ball Horticultural Company. So I did take it and adapt their particular presentation from the Southeast Green for homeowner use as well as things that you could do if you wanted a side gig in agricultural urban, suburban areas for farmers markets and such. So that's basically it. I gave you lots and lots of information. If you have a question, you can put that in the chat box and I will see if there's anything here. Foxglove, that's it. I could not remember that. My aunt lives out in St. Helens, Washington area, and when they clear cut an area out there, the foxglove come up in it's just all over the place. It's very beautiful. So it's interesting because when they some of that timber might be there for 60, 80, 100 years, and then they come and they clear cut it, and that seed bank has been there all that time, but it's not had enough light. So after they cut the trees, they'll all come up and you can look out there and you see some green grass and then all the foxglove that's popped up. It's very pretty. So even though you've got kind of a barren landscape with lack of trees, you've got the beautiful foxglove, and that kind of makes up for it a little bit. I missed what you said about soil. Can you go over that at the end? So soil, basically in a container situation, you're going to exhaust whatever elements the plant needs. Plants need 13 to 16 different elements in varying amounts. Your most or your macronutrients are going to be nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, the NPK ratio. Those are the elements the plant needs the most of. The next group is going to be your macronutrients, secondary macronutrients. They need a little less of those. Calcium, magnesium, things like that. And then you have your micronutrients, and they don't need very much at all of those, but they still need those. That could be boron, sulfur, things like that. So if you're using a container, you need to make sure that you are periodically, at least a couple times a year, that you're fertilizing with a complete fertilizer. They do make them for organics. They also make inorganics, and you can get micronutrient mixes that are just the micronutrients, literally. But you do need to make sure that you are providing that as a supportive therapy to the plant because you're not in the ground with the mineral soil, it's in a container. And mostly it's soilless mix, it's not actual mineral soil. So you have to put that back in because the plant will use those. How to stop squirrels from gouging up the raised beds. Oh, digging? Yeah, there's not really a way to. Squirrels are going to do what squirrels are going to do, right? So I always recommend putting mulch of some sort over a raised bed or whatever you're growing. That doesn't really deter them. I mean, you're going to have a similar issue with cats or anything else. You can fluff the pine straw up. Hmm. You can try that. But really, if you put it out in an open area, you're less likely to get the squirrels because of the overhead or the aerial predators. But some people will actually you can get these little pads. They're meant for cats. They're plastic, and you put them in and around pots. And when they go in there to dig, they hit the plastic, and then they get tired of that, so they go away. But yeah, there's not really good things to we fight the squirrels all the time. Are all the pairings you suggested like teas matched for drainage light? Yes, mostly. Yeah. And again, you can pick as long as you choose whatever the plants are, look at the conditions on the tag. So if you're walking around Home Depot on the weekend and you see a bunch of really new and cool looking annuals and maybe some perennials, and some of those you recognize the herbs and some other stuff, and you're like, oh, that's cool. I wonder if I can grow those together. Just look at the back of the tag and look to see what their water needs are, what their light needs are, and what size they are. So that's why I said you got to do a little planning. If you do that, then you can figure out, okay, these all work together and put them in a pot. So it just means you got to read the tag. You're welcome. Good. I'm glad you all got something out of it. Oh, thank you. Let's see. I have tried lavender in pots and they just fizzle out once the Georgia heat. Yes. Yes. They don't like humidity at all. You can try using a substrate, a cactus substrate in a pot with them. Again, lavender is more Mediterranean. It prefers that kind of climate, so dry or arid. There are a couple varieties of lavender that are being worked on to be grown in the Southeast. So if you can source those and then match that with the correct substrate, you may have a better chance of growing lavender here in Georgia. But there are some farms up in North Georgia that have it all growing on a hillside, a well-drained hillside, and they amend the soil to make it more gravelly, if you will. Um, but you have to really intensively manage them, and you may have to think of them as an annual, unfortunately. Yes, this will be on YouTube. I'm recording. Let's see. I'd love to see a native plant combo sometime, maybe with some sunchokes. You should totally do that. You should do that, and you should send me a picture to the email address that's right there. I'd love to see your creation. So, I mean, I gave you some ideas here, but you can do whatever you want. I'm just trying to inspire you to try some things at home that, you maybe didn't think about before. That's the whole point, right? You come here to get some interesting information and learn some stuff. So, put it together and see if it works, and then take a picture and send it to me. Maybe a little shade cloth. Yes, you could probably try that. Well, blueberries grow really big, so you can prune blueberries. There are some varieties. Lemonade is it's a very pink lemonade is a it's I guess sold as a container blueberry. It has some self-fruitful ability, meaning it doesn't need to create fruit, but if you have to, it will obviously create more fruit. But those will stay smaller. So you're going to look for dwarf or container varieties. There are some out there. It may be more difficult to source them. So they may not be obviously available at big box stores or at your local nurseries. You may have to ask your local nurseries if they can order them, or you might have to order them online. Are any potential containers too small? Well, it depends on the plant that you've got in there. I mean, if you have a tiny little, they call them like 1818s, which are those big trays that have tiny little inserts like that. If you have plants like that, those are very small. They're obviously going to get bigger, but you could start out in a gallon at that point. But what I wouldn't do is take a 3, 4 inch pots and cram them into a 1 gallon. That's too much. So, you always want a little bit of space all around the plant so that they can grow into that. Yeah, you can try pine cones, but if you're in a smaller pot, putting those pine cones in there is not going to deter them too much. The pine cones would be, if they come in to dig, if you can put them kind of subsurface, they'll hit the pine cone and presumably stop digging because it's an obstruction. When I have plasticware left over, I'm taking, yeah, I stick knives, forks, and spoons. You can also try bamboo skewers like you would use for shish kebabs. I've tried those in my house plants because I have cats indoors and they like to use that as a litter box. Thankfully, none of them do right now, but I've had some that have. So you can try bamboo skewers. You can try, they make all sorts of commercially produced options for that you can put down that are supposed to deter cats and squirrels and things like that. Yeah. Um, and you can be careful about, I mean, because really they're looking for last year's nuts that they buried for food. So sometimes you can, if you go out there and you're continuously disrupting the soil, maybe they're less likely to do that. But as my container plants, I haven't had a ton of issues with squirrels. Mostly it's in ground and things like that. All right. I don't see any other questions. So unless somebody throws one in there last minute, if you have any other questions that pop into your head after the fact, feel free to email me. I'm happy to answer those. If you want a copy of the slide deck, you can email me at that lisa.klein@gwinnettcounty.com. I'm happy to provide that. If you want to go check out previously recorded webinars, you can go to the Metro Master Gardener YouTube channel that's down below there on the right. If you want to look at whatever classes I have coming up, you can go look over there at the events and classes and you can register. Make sure to check your spam folder because a lot of times that's where it goes. So I will go ahead and stop sharing, but thank you so much for attending. I hope you were inspired to go try some stuff, and I hope you have a good rest of the evening. So take care.